So I do believe that we are live. I can see my special guest. He can see me, and I'm going to introduce you to my guest today. So, my guest today is Harvey Castro, and I had the pleasure of meeting Harvey via another friend who deals with healthcare in the USA. As you can see, I'm from the UK, and my name is Joy Langley, and I'm an emotional intelligence coach, and I'm also a therapist. And I just love talking to everyone about emotional intelligence. That's my thing, because really it's what else are human beings unless we are communicating with each other in a very polite and reasonable fashion. But my today's guest is Harvey Castro. And Harvey, I call him the Rebel MD. But I did check on Google, Harvey, and apparently other people are using that. But I'm from the old school, from rap and hip hop days, and there was actually someone called the Rebel MD. So that's a little bit of news for you. But my guest today is so passionate about medicine. He got into medicine at a very, well, not young age, but youngish. And it's just been a passion for him and a real passion for healthcare. That's what I picked up from Harvey. Also, Harvey got involved with TV appearances during that whole horrible dark days of COVID, which we all remember, when I'm sure that presenters were just scrambling for someone to come up and represent the medical profession. Of course, doctors are very shy, apart from Harvey. And it helped you to just catapult yourself, Harvey. I know it did that. And also, I want to talk about your passion for AI, Chat GTP, and you are like this. You know, if it's technical, you're like this. But it's so that you can bring, I think it's cheaper healthcare to people because you've been on that side of the fence too. So, Harvey, that was a quick summary of you. And there's a lot more to it, a lot more to it. But I'm going to jump in at this part where, I don't know, the TV appearances during COVID. How did that happen? How did that actually happen? Because, I'm hoping one day that Oprah might call me. I'm still waiting by the phone, Harvey. That's life. But these kind of experiences happened for you. So tell me some more.
Honor to be here. I really mean it, and I love you to death. You're an amazing person, so I'm excited. So thank you. So on the TV appearance, honestly, it came from a good place. Middle of COVID was happening, and I kept watching the news, and I kept thinking, "Gosh, every time I watch turn on the TV, I'm kind of depressed. It's kind of sad. I don't see anyone out there just being that light that things are going to be okay." And I thought, "This doomsday has to end." There's some science here. Let me share it. Let me talk with the doctor's voice. And so I literally got on the phone and started calling NBC, Telemundo, Univision, all the major networks, saying, "Hey, if you need a doctor, just call me and I will do it." Well, fast forward, in that year, I literally did over 100 live interviews, and some days I did 5 interviews a day, and I was on all the network channels, and then the nice part of it was on the Hispanic channels, I really felt like I was the only person out there that really was speaking their language. They would always translate other doctors, but someone that really just spoke their language was me. And so I was really honored to be that person.
And your background then, Harvey, I should be able to work it out, I suppose, from your surname, Castro. Um, South American? I mean, I'm not good with geography, so you're going to have to enlighten me. Where? What's your heritage? What's your lineage?
Yeah. My parents are both from Colombia. I'm the first American born slash first college student in my family. So I'm really blessed to have come to this country. I know it sounds a little cliche-ish, but I really feel, and I thank God my grandfather's still alive. I always give him hugs like, "Hey, I'm glad you came to this country." I feel like I was able to do a lot. I don't know necessarily if I was able to do as much if I was in third world country, but I know for sure being here has made a difference.
So that's you know what, a lot of us are first generation immigrants in that respect. Same with me. My parents came to the UK from Jamaica, so me too. And we're getting a lot of messages. So good morning from Atlanta. That is from put my glasses on properly, but that was from Rastafa Geddes. Hope I pronounced that properly. And we've got someone else who's asking about whether this show will be recorded. So it is being recorded. You'll be able to watch it again, yet again. So not a problem there. Thank you so much for coming up and saying that. And Marco always turns up for a lot of my interviews. So Marco, good to see you. Lovely to see you. So yes, the TV appearances happened. You have got such a down to earth attitude, and that's the thing that struck me about you, Harvey. You say it very casually, "Oh, well, hundreds of, like, interviews," and I'm thinking, "Yeah, that's a big deal." But it's not necessarily the thing that floats your boat. Now, medicine is where your heart lies, and you got into that. I'm sure you must have been a fresh-faced 20-something, around that age, and you've never left it. Never left it, Harvey. I know you've morphed more recently into entrepreneurship and your own company, etc., but medicine is still central for you. Just tell me why that kind of matters to you, because I do know a little bit about your background that you shared, but just explain why it really matters to you. Good healthcare.
Yeah, unfortunately, and fortunately, as a child, I had really bad healthcare. I didn't have insurance, didn't have money, grew up in poverty, and I really struggled. And I didn't wanna see others struggle. I didn't wanna get that. I didn't want others to have that healthcare. So I thought, let me be that one person to see if I can change things. And I look at my left hand, you really can't see it, but I have a line up and down my hand, and it's from a scar that basically I was trying to play basketball on the street in New York, and I hit a sign, and when I came down, it had a piece of metal sticking out, and it gashed my hand open. And I went to the ER, and they gave me a bunch of stitches, but the doctor said, "Hey, we can't give you anesthesia. We're just gonna have to do it." And I was a little kid. I was so upset. It hurt like a mother. And long story short, I thought, this is horrible. He shouldn't have done that to me. I should have not had to wait hours and hours in the ER, my hand just all open. I said, when I grow up, I'm gonna be a doctor. I'm actually gonna be an ER doctor, and I'm gonna change at least patients that I take care of.
That's horrible to it doesn't matter what age you are and if you're in pain and you have to have a procedure and no anesthetic. That's taking us back to, I don't know, prehistoric times. What person would who would it occur to that I have access to anesthesia, but I'm afraid that you're on the wrong healthcare plan, therefore you cannot have any. I can't believe anyone even thinking that, Harvey. And it takes me onto this whole thing about I don't know, empathy and doctors and caring, but that's a bit down the line for us. So I didn't actually know that. That's a story which has motivated you to become a doctor for a reason, And you got into med school, you loved it. You say it was like a playground for you, learning and absorbing all of this information about, I don't know, the human body.
I love med school. In fact, I think I was so obsessed with getting into med school that undergrad was harder for me than med school because med school is what I wanted to be when I grew up. And undergrad, I was a bit of an overachiever. I have two diplomas, one in political science and one in biomedical science. And I remember just having headaches. Like it was just so much work to write papers, but then also to memorize all the science and biochemistry and all that stuff. So that by the time I got to med school, I'm like, okay, this is pretty easy. This is stuff I want to do. This makes sense to me, and it was a lot of fun.
Right, so you're one of the rare people that would say med school was a lot of fun, because even over in the UK, I know there's an awful lot of years training that have to go into it, and then you have to come out and start doing your, like, an apprenticeship, I suppose, but in the ER. So we've got the A&E, we call it over here. You've got the ER, but it's the same place. It's the cutting edge of where problems are happening left, right, and center, people turning up with all kinds of weird and wacky things happening to them, and you have to deal with it. And I always wonder, what kinds of a mentality does someone have to adopt in order to see all that suffering and yet, I don't know, still be able to carry on, Harvey? It's not something that I could do.
It's funny you say that. It took my wife to open my eyes recently and say, you've gone through a lot of emotional trauma, and I was like, what are you talking about? And it kinda explains how I am in a way that it's a catch-22. You can't be this cold doctor to your patients. My heart and my passion is to give it my all to my patients. Simultaneously, I know I have pride. I have known that I've just broke down in tears with some of the stuff I've seen in the ER, but I don't think it's at all fair to the next person that I don't give them 100%, that I'm not 100% emotional for them. And so it's really draining. I remember coming home and just my brain, my mind, my soul, I just had nothing, after a shift at work. And it's that empathy that I still think, even though it was gonna cost me, I didn't care. I wanted to give to my patients. I didn't think it was fair not to be empathetic, not to give that care for our patients and love as a human being. And that was just powerful for me. And I didn't even see it. Like I was like, man, I wonder why I'm so tired today. But it was because of that, and coming home too. I had at that time I had four little ones, and coming home to four kids, I couldn't come home upset or sad or angry or tired. I had to come home just like daddy's ready to go and let's, be all emotional for them as well. So it was a lot.
It's hard work, and I think there are some, professions that you can go into where I would say the younger you are, the better when you're having to work in that way, but then there's a maturity that comes as well, which is also gonna be useful for some professions. So you had the, age on your side in terms of energy back then. Now you have wisdom on your side, plus a lot of other things, so and I'm getting some nice, feedback again from our audience, and there's another little bit there for you that, your work in therapy is just, just well known. So this is from, again, let's get the names right. You know me, I keep not putting my glasses on properly and I keep missing things. But Rastafa Geddes, thank you so much for all of that. So Harvey, being involved in medicine, caring about human beings, it's great. It's something which I suppose I'm doing in my own way. I'm using my therapy experience to help business owners to look at emotional intelligence. So bringing in that other level of coaching. But the the whole thing with the caring profession from the patient side is that it's kind of scary going to a doctor and trying to explain what's wrong with you. Invariably, you walk in, you think you know what you're going to say, and then you walk out and you think, what the hell happened there? You hold it clutching a prescription, normally in the UK, and you think, what does it say? How do I use it? I really don't know. Now, is this something that you noticed with patients?
Yeah, I'm blessed in that I feel like I grew up in a melting pot. I grew up in New York City, and I really, growing up, just having classmates, friends inviting me over, I learned all the different cultures, all the different people, and how to talk to different cultures and angles. And it made me very aware and sensitive to when I speak to a patient and I ask them for affirmation saying, "Did you understand kind of what I went through?" And they would say, "Oh yeah, doc." And I'm like, "No, they didn't get it." They and I would say, "Feel free to ask." And they're like, "No, no, doc, you're busy. I know you got another case." Like, "No, it's all good." And I'm like, "No, it's not all good." And I'm worried that our patients, some of them are intimidated by the doctors, and the other part of this is I call it the translation. Like I speak doctor language, but I try my best to speak just regular language. And sometimes patients may not understand because they don't have that healthcare education that I do. And as much as I think I did a good job, I may have failed. And so I think it's important for us to be sensitive to our patients to understand that, hey, what you said is not understood, and you need to be able to explain it well.
And I think, it's okay, it's nice hearing you taking some responsibility for perhaps the patient not understanding, but it's not always down to the doctors, I got to be honest, because there's going to be we've been conditioned to trust people that are in positions of power and status. And I'm not saying doctors have a God complex, but patients can sometimes put doctors on a pedestal and decide that you know everything. So, yeah, there's an interaction, a communication that's happening that's not useful, despite you trying to be as lovely and as caring and as kind as you want to be. It might not be received well from the patients because I think being in pain and going to a doctor and suffering, I think your mindset's all over the place. You're not exactly on your A game. So it's a different place. It's a different place. And this is why when we had our conversation about empathy coming into things with doctors and me sort of like wondering, is this something that you get taught at med school? How to deal with patients?
No, it's tough because it's almost an apprenticeship in the sense that you learn everybody learns the textbook. Everybody learns the questions. Everybody learns the bioethics and stuff like that. But the actual empathy, I think it comes from within. And it's one of those that is hard to teach, and it's good to have apprentices out there and doctors that have it so that when you're in training, you learn it. But if you happen to be on different rotations in different parts of the hospital that don't lend themselves that way, then you're less likely to learn. For example, if you're in oncology going through cancer training and all that, you're going to have the tough conversations with patients. You're going to see from your mentors, and hopefully they have empathy in those situations and they're teaching you, as opposed to doing a trauma rotation. Some of the doctors, again, no disrespect to trauma surgeons, I love them to death. They're saving life, but some of them are really harsh. And some of them, because they're having so much emotional strain and seeing so many horrible things, they become hard. And I feel like some of them don't show any empathy, but I think it's to protect themselves.
I was going to say that, be quite honest, Harvey. I mean, even you admitted that going through med school, then going into ER, seeing so much suffering, human beings, I think at some point will have to shut themselves down. And your wife was right. Trauma is real, but the response, different people have different ways of dealing with stuff. So shutting things down, not letting yourself be overwhelmed by something so you can focus on your job, I think that's probably a necessity. But, talking about, specialists, that's something me and my sister have a standing joke really when she sees her specialist. Um, she says, he doesn't listen to me. He's not listening to me. He thinks I'm stupid. I ask really sensible questions. And he literally looks at me as if to say, who are you to say that? And I know better than you. And she says, but she holds her ground. But it's hard. That can be hard. So there is this communication thing that some doctors do really well. I must admit, I've got a very good doctor over in the UK, Harvey, but we could do better. Now, when we start looking at AI, so AI has been around in different forms on, chat bots on some of the platforms that I go onto, but it's gone to a whole new level at the beginning of this year, for me at least, in terms of acknowledging that chat GPT, all of this generative AI stuff that's there, which I've had to take on board a new language. You've been taking that on board for quite some time, Harvey. You're probably someone I'd go to your house and I see all these gadgets because I think you might be gadget man. You just love gadgets and you just love technology. So AI, where does it fit into your thinking now when it comes to your patients and patient healthcare?
You know, I gotta go give a quick background story. I was in the ER coding a patient. The iPhone 1 had just come out, and had to give a patient a dose. And I told the nurse, "Hey, this is the medication." And she's like, "We need to verify." So she got a big textbook, thumbed through it. It took a while actually, and then by the time she gave the dose, at that time, I thought, "Gosh, we got to do something quicker here." This and when minutes counts. So long story short, I taught myself how to program, came up with the first app called IV Meds, and it literally went viral. It was in the top 10 in the world, did really well. And fast forward, I'm playing with ChatGPT of November of last year, and I thought, oh my gosh, it gave me that same feeling of the iPhone. I thought, oh, man, this is going to change lives. This is going to help people. And since then, I started like little public service announcement. Let me tell people about this. Let me tell doctors the good, the bad, the ugly, and patients the same. And since then, I feel like I personally made a difference in that. I feel like I'm helping doctors understand this technology, coming up with the creativity of healthcare in the sense that I've owned ERs, I've owned staffing companies for physicians, I've been a doctor in the front lines, I've been all sorts of places in healthcare. And I thought, man, what if I put my imagination with AI and healthcare, and what kind of things can I come up with? So long story, I've been helping, and one of the things that makes me the most excited is, and I'll share with everybody, is this example I give all the time, and it's the pediatric example where if you have a kid, let's just say the first time asthma, this actually came out of a hospital in England where the child came in with asthma. Long story short, the normal way is you take care of the patient, you send them home, and you give them pieces of paper, say, "Hey, here's the discharge summary." Well, what this hospital did is they took the discharge instructions for pediatric asthma, fed it into ChatGPT and said, "Tell me how to speak to a 5-year-old, not how to speak to an adult, how to speak to a 5-year-old using their words, their language." Then they took something like Dolly where they could type and create pictures and made a coloring book and merged those 2 together and then gave the child, "Here's your discharge instructions. Here's how, you're gonna understand your disease." And I thought, "Man, this is great," because having had kids, little ones, I know it's really tough to talk to a 5-year-old. I know it's really tough to teach them. And then
Exactly.
some of these concepts are so high, like preventative asthma and why you need to take and checking your asthma levels, all these things a kid doesn't understand. But if you put it in a coloring book and now the nurse or the doctor can color the parents, that child is going to start taking it in and really understanding their disease process. And I have a feeling because of this, now we're going to start seeing less cases of people having issues, or especially kids, depending how this is applied.
And in a way then, that's quite new because merging you mentioned DALL-E, and I hope people, understand that. It's that DALI, it's the drawing, AI tool, isn't it? So merging that with the technology so that you can talk to someone at a level that they understand. It happens to be a 5-year-old. And I think I did catch one of your talks as well, Harvey. There was a coloring book which it showed, and then it showed it. I don't know. Then a picture of it being had been coloured in, so the child was interacting with this drawing and understanding what was wrong with him or her. I mean, but there's lots of ways that AI is going to infiltrate and capture in very many places. Well, I shouldn't be surprised that it's already exists within the medical field because the medical field is full of technology that has already been saving lives. But you're seeing an application between all of these letters, AI, artificial intelligence, and then is it VR, virtual reality, and then what's the other one that I can't?
AR,
AR,
augmented
artificial,
reality. Yeah.
augmented reality. See, there's so much tech language, and I'll end up talking gobbledygook if I'm not careful. But AI, AR, and
VR,
VR. Thank you for
virtual
helping me out.
reality.
You can see that I'm a bit slow on the uptake here. But all of these things are merging together
Yeah.
and hopefully for the betterment of mankind to help patients and their healthcare. Is there any resistance? Have you noticed any resistance from doctors? Because you obviously mix in that world. There's always going to be people that are for change, and there's going to be people that are anti change, and people that are stuck in the mud. What's your kind of perspective on how doctors are feeling at the moment?
Well, I definitely say in life that this one definitely has a bell curve. We have, and I'm not gonna sound like I'm discriminating with age. I'm just generalizing based on statistics that I have read. But I can honestly see that this is true. The older doctors that I have managed in the past, they don't wanna type. They want me to get a scribe so that that person can write for them because they don't know how to type. Nothing against them, they just grew up not with a typewriter, and some of my older doctors, they just can't. And when they do, they look away from the patient and they're looking at their fingers, and there's 1 finger at a time. Um, and a lot of them are stuck in the ER for hours after their shift. The younger docs, they love AI. They're like, "Give it to me. How can I use it? Let's go." They're trying to teach others. They're early adopters. And then we have a mixed bag of people that are using it but don't understand the dangers of it. And then there's the opposite. So, um, and in general, I have
Interesting.
to say doctors, in general, are very conservative, and the healthcare system as well. And so, and education in general is also not gonna change. And so you have a disruptive technology like AI that's gonna help you learn. In that statement, every 30 days, our medical knowledge doubles. Think about that.
Wow.
Imagine having to double your knowledge every 30 days. That's unreal. And that's why we have to specialize. There's no doctor that can say, I know all the specialties. Like, I technically have all of them because I'm an ER doctor, but I don't have the depth of a cardiologist. I don't have the depth of a surgeon. But I know what they're doing. I know how they're doing it. I know what to do in an emergency case. But outside of that emergency case, I'm not as good. And so to my point, using AI will make me better.
Yeah, and do you know what? On a very simple level, when we went back to like that first statement that you made, that some doctors are not even very good at typing. I'm thinking, yeah, why do we make an assumption that everybody can type? I mean,
Yeah.
I came through my 20s and I did learn to type. And I
Mhm.
think students are forced to learn to type, even if it's very quickly with two fingers and they get very
Yeah.
proficient eventually because they have laptops. But you're quite right. Way before we actually needed to type anything, why would they need to type? So that's even a basic stumbling block, isn't it? And then,
Yeah.
as you said, being with a patient. So I'm talking to you. I mean, I've gone to my doctor and she has, she's quite thorough and she's quite interactive. But obviously, she does have to look down and type stuff into the computer. But then she looks back at me. But you can imagine if the struggle is just trying to work out where's the A or where's the L or where's the
Mm.
N,
Yeah.
but you just look totally preoccupied. So something as
Yeah.
basic as that, Harvey, I'm just like shocked by that. But half and half, we're saying there will be people who will be slow to adapt. But what's going to happen to, dare we say, it's already a discussion, isn't it, in all professions? But what's going to happen to those that don't adapt?
You know, it's interesting. I can make an argument that those that don't adapt, I'm gonna make a counter argument that people don't really think of. The technology is getting so good that even if they don't wanna adapt, it's gonna be integrated into their workflow. For example, there's so many, tools out there that already transcribe conversations, and they're going into healthcare so that you can look at the patient. But taking it to the next level, there's other, technology that can literally the camera can take the blood pressure. I've already met with a company that has a virtual resident in that it'll ask a patient all the questions about why they came, what they did, and it'll do a full history exam. It'll be accurate. It has, like, algorithms behind the algorithms to walk through the different workflows and what questions to ask so that by the time you see the doctor, it has done so much. And so those doctors that are like, I hate AI, well, before the patient even saw you, it was all done by AI, or a lot of it was. The other argument that everybody's heard of is that you're gonna be replaced by AI, and I don't necessarily think that's true. I'm gonna go with the adage of you'll be replaced by other doctors that know how to use AI, but I'm gonna modify that. I'm gonna say you're gonna be replaced by doctors that use AI better than you. Not that they're not using AI, it's just that you're using AI better than them. And if you think it through, they're becoming more efficient. They're giving a care amazing to their patient because their creativity and doing things with AI and the stuff I mentioned to you, just to use that example, take it to another level. What if you use those discharge instructions, animate it to a cartoon, animate it to a kid's voice, put it up on a screen, put their VR glasses on, and now they're seeing it in 3D and getting it, and they're like, "Whoa, this is a video game now. I'm playing, like, whoa, this is cool." That creativity, that idea comes from the doctor understanding the technology and being able to apply it and using their creativity to take it to another level.
You know what, Harvey? It's kind of mind blowing initially, and sometimes when as technology keeps on shifting and new things come in, and I'm trying to take it on board, I kind of get a headache. My head feels really full until I've almost had some kind of an upgrade overnight while sleeping, and then I wake
Yes.
up in the morning. I think, oh, I actually understand this now. So there is always that point where things change and it's hard to adopt, and then you do. And this whole idea around will human beings still have a place in this world? I can only say yes. You know, it would be awful if, like some of the horror films that I like to watch and the disaster movies that I watch, the machines take over. Um, I hope it doesn't ever get to that. But human beings, we do have a place at the moment. The machines are only as good as us. And I know one of your favorite phrases, Harvey, is gigo, Gigo. Now, for those of you that don't know, I shall hand this over to Harvey and he can fill you in. Gigo.
So, yeah, so garbage in, garbage out. Basically, all it means is, I talk to doctors and they say, Harvey, this technology sucks. It's horrible. And I said, well, let's talk about your example. How did you look at it? And then they tell me, okay, I asked ChatGPT this way. And I said, garbage in, the way you asked the question, you got garbage out. Let me show you how I do it. So then I go through and I show them, and then they see this output and they're like, whoa, I didn't get that answer. And I said, it's not you. It's just that I'm using technology. I know how to talk to it. I'm really refined. I know exactly how to even get a better output. And so the other side of this story is the actual computer itself. Say if you and I were going to create an emotional intelligence virtual coach, it'd be
Yeah, let's go
amazing.
for it.
It really would be amazing. But what if you and I decided to write another AI that was for legal? Our legal, entering that information would be pretty much garbage. And then that model that would produce stuff would not really be that good. So it'd be garbage out. And so it's both sides. And I like using that example because if you think about it, ChatGPT was not meant for healthcare, was not meant for all these other things. It's just so good at a lot. I call it like an ER doctor like me. I'm really good at a lot, but I'm not really in depth with a lot. So think about it. What if we took a doctor like me that knows ER and just put me in front of a computer and put say an army of ER doctors just to work on ER medicine, just to work on this what's called large language model and do what's called reinforced learning and then take this algorithm to another level. Now garbage in is not. It's actually really good data in and the output should be really strong. And that's what we're about
Wow.
to start seeing.
And that is gonna happen. And like I said, garbage in, garbage out is an interesting concept of its in and of itself, Harvey. But for me, there's also I got like alarm bells going off around the machine is the content in the machine is only as good as the values and the ethics of the person that's keying the stuff in. And when I'm saying that, I'm looking at areas of reinforcing what already exists in society.
Yeah.
Let's say the prejudices that exist
Mhm.
already and the discrimination that already exists, which we know is just the undercurrent of lots of things, not just the medical profession, everywhere.
Yeah.
But if a machine is being programmed by someone who doesn't like a certain group of people,
Mhm.
there is the risk that that program will be biased.
Yeah, let's dissect that a little. If our databases, let's just call a generic GPT, is entered with information and research, but the research is biased in the sense that it's only studying one or two populations, but it's not really studying all the populations, then right there, the model's flawed because it's not giving all that information. Looking at it something as simple as language. If that study was done in the United States and someone in a third world country or somewhere, let's say Africa, is trying to use that data, it's not the same population. The same problems are not the same, and the same solutions are not the same, and it's a different genetic, and it's just so many factors that's flawed. That's already biased. That's already incorrect. Taking it to another level, let's just say we somehow in the United States were able to match the population of a certain part of Africa, and like, oh no, it's represented. The fact that our language is a different language, things literally do get lost in translation, and what I say in English may not output the same in Africa. And you're like, "Oh, no, that's nonsense." No, it's actually and so we need to make sure this does not happen. It's really fascinating. This whole we could have a whole discussion about
Well, the whole
ethics.
ethics
Yeah,
is an issue anyway, not just in
but I agree.
medicine. But I know that bringing it into to medicine is bringing it into care, just into healthcare. There are already unfair practices, let's say, that happens. It will only just be, I think, just exacerbated, multiplied by the use of something like that. But at least you're acknowledging that, Harvey. And I'm assuming, I don't know if the medical profession are having those kinds of talks around the ethics of AI at the moment. Perhaps they are, because I know that uh, America is very much into it's a culture where you will sue people if things are any
Yeah.
malpractices. The UK aren't quite as hot on that. We do a bit of it, but not as much. So perhaps the ethics and the malpractice claims and that's all going to be working hand in hand. I don't know. I'm just guessing with my
Yeah,
limited knowledge.
yeah, no, I think that there's a awareness in the United States, and it's trying to correct these things. And I do see that it sounds a little too geeky, but I do see a future where we're going to have AI train other AI models, and we're going to do our best to take out the human part of it, which is not in a bad way, but just a human error, the error in thinking. Because you're right, if I think faulty in a certain way and that's my beliefs, I'm going to program that into the language. But if there's a way of just trying your best to stick to facts, and that's even controversial, well, it's a fact to me, maybe not a fact to you. And so then we got to make sure that we do our best to take that human part out, not being horrible like a cold way, but no, just the error part of it, the biases that we have. It's true. Like our parents, grandparents, they thought a different way. My grandchildren will be thinking a different way. We all evolve, and hopefully, as we evolve, so will these models to take out those biases. One of the last things I want to say about this little part is we need a billionaire out there to work on research to take out these biases so that we have the research so that we can put these new models, these new ideas. We're representing all the populations. We're doing the research in those countries in their language, and we're creating new models for their countries specific to their diseases to be able to best take out those issues.
And Harvey, you have such a positive attitude towards life. So whenever I talk to you, I always feel really like buoyant and hopeful and just excited about it. But because I'm an optimistic pessimist, or a pessimistic optimist. Get those words out. I do have to sit on the fence sometimes and think, okay, more people like you, Harvey, great. Less people of the kind that I don't like, yeah, that would be the way to go. But you can't stop the tide moving forward, and technology is everywhere anyway. And we're looking at how it works in medicine and just your passion for it. I mean, when you were, I don't know, late teens, early 20s, did you just get into a lot of gadgets? I'm so convinced that I would just see you surrounded by the latest toy, the latest, I
Yeah.
don't know, PlayStation. I don't know what would that be true?
Oh yeah. Even if I didn't have the money, I prioritized towards gadgets. I remember having the first Google glasses and the first iPhone, and all the latest toys and gadgets because I just love this stuff. But I've always thought if I could use this to leverage to be more efficient, to do things better, to do things outside the box, I just enjoy it so much. In theory, we're playing with technology that's over a year old. There's stuff out there that they're not going to release just yet. We're not ready, but it's there, and it's interesting. Like just as
Can
skinny as
you
there's
tell us some more?
yeah, yeah, there's robots that are ready to go, that will be coming out in the fourth quarter of this year, and it's crazy. If you put all the things together, like you mentioned at some point today, that it's going to be emerging of all these technologies. Just to give you a little glance of the future, we will have a robot with ChatGPT 4 equivalent in the eyes of the robot, in that it's able to see. When it's able to see, it's actually able to take your blood pressure, your average sugar, your age, many things. On top of that, it'll have tactile function, meaning it can feel and report back to what it sees and feels. And so, in theory, it could touch a patient's belly and say, "Oh, that's an appendicitis. This is a gallbladder," giving all the information of ChatGPT or an AI equivalent. Just so many things are coming. I'm just like amazed with what we're about to see, and this is my prediction. I think you would say, "Oh, the United States is going to get this right away." Actually, no. I think it's going to be applied in third world countries before it's applied in the United States because laws, regulation, biases, people that we already talked about that are in control that don't want to see this technology for financial reasons or other reasons are going to hold back this technology. Are going to say no. We're lobbying. We're going to sue against this. But then third world countries that the risk versus benefit ratio is now different. They're going to say, you know what? We don't have enough doctors in healthcare, or our doctors not. They can't. We need to help our people. We're going to put this technology forth, and it's
Yeah,
okay.
I hear that, and I had alarm bells go off in my head again there, Harvey. Just mentioning that, because I don't like to talk about COVID, but let's go back to COVID a bit, and just the dishing out of the medication, which is a whole other thing going on in the on all the threads that I read. But if the a normal population who have money are refusing to take something or have something, but yet they're prepared to give it to the third world countries or people with less than, the alarm bells go off because you always think we're normally last in the queue for everything. Suspicion. How comes we're first in the queue here? So that's why my alarm bell went off. But I did hear what you said, that perhaps it's ironing out some of the red tape in countries, and the other countries will say, well, do you know what, we don't have decent healthcare, this is better than nothing. So that's going to be an interesting one
Oh, it's gonna be
to play
very
out.
interesting.
That's going to be an
Yeah,
interesting one to play out. Okay, well, let's go back to something slightly lighter hearted. Yeah,
yeah,
slightly. Because I'm always looking at this world of emotional intelligence, as you know, and for me, it's about human interaction. If you want to imagine it's being five pillars to do with
yeah,
self-awareness. So you're a very self-aware person, Harvey. Get a tick already for me on that one. It's down to how do we regulate our emotions and identify our emotions and let the good ones do what they're meant to do, and the bad ones we kind of just reformulate them. So you tick on that one for me too as well, Harvey. Empathy. I've got to give you a tick on empathy too. Motivation, the emotions that you use to motivate you. There's loads floating about. You're so excited by all of this technology, and then also just the social interactions. You actually love working around people. You're not someone who's going to be stuck in a back room just with your machines. You
no.
actually do like meeting and talking to people. So you've ticked all five of my emotional intelligence, boxes there. But going back to doctors and empathy, I think when we spoke, you mentioned about teaching doctors about empathy.
Yeah.
That's something which you've done as a course, as a piece of training.
Yeah, I like giving this other story. I was working in the ER and I kept getting called to the principal's office because I was taking too much time with my patients. I was ordering too many tests. They were like, "You're doing too much for your patients and it's costing us too much money." Even though they were making tons of money, they still gave me a hard time. Fast forward, I thought, you know what? I'm just going to create my own healthcare system. I'm going to create ERs. I'm going to create my own system. I'm going to teach doctors, and I want them to love working again. And so I created a mandatory course that every single employee, doctor, nurse, front office, whoever, even the janitors, whoever worked for us had to go through. And it was talking about this emotional intelligence, a lot of the pain points in healthcare are addressed differently, and I wanted to address it with just time. For example, quality time. When I actually did the opposite with my doctors. If they spend too little time with their patients, they would get in trouble. I would look at the electronic medical record, and if I saw that they only spent like 5, 10 minutes, I'm like, no, they get an hour. They get more. I understand they were just there for something simple, fine. But if they're there for something complicated, I expect more time. And then there was also this acts of service. I said, we need to do stuff for the patients, and it doesn't have to be the nurse. I need a doctor to bring water to the patient. I need a doctor to bring that pillow and blanket for the patient. It's not the nurse's job. We need to show that you're empathetic and that you're going to take it to the next level. And then I know the touch part, obviously, with all the stuff and legal. I said, I want you guys, if there's an intimate conversation, something painful, I want you to touch their shoulder. I want that physical touch, or at least show the empathy that you're wanting to connect with them. And so I did all these things because I just felt like that was the right thing for our patients. That's how I wanted healthcare for my patients.
So it's insisting that the healthcare provider, the doctor, is seen a little bit more by the patient, but also the patient begins to have a good feeling about being cared for. Of course, the nurses will always get given
Yeah,
the directive and the orders, but you're saying no, 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 no. You have to be seen to be
yeah,
doing it. It's
yeah,
important. I like that. And you've also then using AI to track how long people are with people. That's an interesting one. But forcing doctors to do that, I'm thinking, would they take that on board or not? I'm really not sure about that. But you've explained why it's important for them to do that. And in
yeah.
general, then, when it comes to training doctors, are they do I mean, I keep thinking, where are they going to find the time to take on board training? The empathy training, I think, is absolutely important. But when it comes to all of this new technology, comes to the AI, where are they going to get the time to keep up to date with it, because even I'm meant to keep up to date with, ideas in my therapeutic field and find out stuff, and I find that quite hard. So how do doctors find the time when they really are stressed? And there's a shortage of doctors. In the UK, we have got, it feels like a major shortage. You can't even get an appointment with your GP easily. So,
Awesome question. Unfortunately, there's only like 5,000 doctors in the world that have true AI training and are a doctor. So if you think about that, hospital administrators, companies that are trying to add AI in healthcare don't have doctors to tell them how to use it, if it's good product or not, or how to evaluate it. They're zero at that. I think the way for doctors to learn is, unfortunately or fortunately, they're gonna have to just adapt to it in the sense that they need to make it as part of reading a journal. I'm an ER doctor. I'm used to reading ER journals. That's part of my day. That's part of my life. I'm a life learner. Now I need to add to my vocabulary. Hey, there's this thing called AI. I need to incorporate it, and I need to keep up with it. The hard part is the keeping up with it. I'm actually working on several platforms for doing that. One of the simple things I did is kind of geeky of me is I created something called the GPT podcast. I cloned my voice. I take medical articles and information on AI and healthcare. I put it into ChatGPT. ChatGPT makes a fake conversation, and I guide it what I want out of that conversation. And then the output is amazing. It's a podcast between my business partner and I. It's just a conversation about AI and healthcare, but it wasn't there. It was all written, which I could do this really quickly, and it's pretty amazing.
the things that you do, so the only thing that limits you, and I know you say it to me, Harvey, is, well, the thing that limits human beings, full stop, is our imagination. And I would never have applied my current knowledge of ChatGTP in that way. You're kind of light years ahead of me in this respect, but in a good way. I can probably learn things from you, which is great. But
It goes both ways.
yes, why,
It goes both ways. I can learn so much from you.
that's so kind of you to say that, Harvey. But I'm definitely going to have to up my game when it comes to all of this tech stuff. And I am learning about ChatGTP. I've been using it since January this year. I was a bit shocked initially when it was first rolled out through one of my tutors, and she was talking about it. And I could only listen to it for about 15 minutes, her talking, and my mind just felt full. So you know that you're learning something new when your brain starts to hurt. It's like, I don't know where to put this. How do we categorize this joy? This is new. My brain's having to find a different filing system for it. I'm thinking, like, yeah, you're working hard. So over the months, it has become a lot easier. I haven't got into the drawing tools that are there. You mentioned Dali, and it's another one called Mid Journey
Oh
that
yeah,
I've
my
heard
journey's good.
of. Obviously, Canva has got its own little AI thing going on, but nowhere near as deep as those other ones. But yeah, I may be old, but I take on board new stuff only because I know that I will get left behind, and also because it's exciting. Try and revive the way that a child would feel being given a new toy or a new piece of anything. They're all over it. Even a cardboard box. They're climbing
Oh,
into
no.
it. They're making it into a castle. They're doing all kinds of things. So we're
Mhm.
limited by imagination. And if you look then further ahead into the future, Harvey, I know that we spoke about application for, let's say, someone who needs to receive information in a different way. We mentioned, a child of 5, but it could be an elderly patient. It could be someone who has got language difficulties or hearing difficulties or whatever it might be. It's adapting it so that this word equity, I suppose, it just goes across. Everyone's got an equal access to healthcare, because even when it comes to simple things like, let's say, transcribing what a picture looks like, if someone is actually, blind, they need to have the transcript of what a pictures look like. We're still dragging our heels on
Yeah.
doing things like that, alternative text and everything else. Um, you know, the the it's only going to be as good as the people who want to adopt it. But there'll come a crunch point when it just becomes normal.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know if you have a handle on. I know things speeding up so quickly. So every 30 days, did you say a doctor's got to upgrade their
Double their
knowledge,
medical knowledge.
double their
It's
medical
crazy
knowledge?
because in 1950, it was about it's either 50 days or 72, I'm sorry, 50 year I think it was 50 years it took to double in 1950. And so we've come a long way of information. So you would think that, the difference between 1950 doctor and 1955, there wasn't that much more knowledge compared to now. The residents that are coming out, the information they have to gather, they understand. It's just so much. To that
Exactly.
point, since you mentioned earlier, I have to brag about my mom. She uses AI. I give her different ways and tools, and I'm so excited. And I tell my mom, and she's like, "Oh, I'm gonna look that up on ChatGPT. I'm gonna." She's an ultrasound tech, and she's learning new ways and studying physics and all this stuff. And I'm like, "Oh, mom, uh, I just love it. It makes me happy." I tell my mom all the time, I'm like, "You're one of the rare people that are your age that are using it the way you're using it and really learn." So I just had a little plug in for my mom.
And your mum, I'm all credit to your mum for actually taking that on board because I do actually I'm surrounded by a lot of people in one of I've gone part of a lot of mastermind groups and coaching groups and stuff. And one of them, we're all kind of probably the average age must be like, I don't know, it feels like 45. I'm still one of the elder ones, but the average age is actually quite high, which means that perhaps it's just a presumption that older people don't take on board new things. And that old adage, you can't teach a dog old tricks. Like, yes, you bloody can. You can, of course, you can teach us new tricks, but it's how you teach it. So perhaps it's the teachers that's required, and then also having
Exactly.
access to the technology. But I think it's a very exciting space to be in, Harvey.
Uh,
And tell me more about just quickly because we've got about only I don't know 10ish minutes left. But that transition that you made from deciding to stop being a doctor
yeah,
in that way and deciding to be an entrepreneur. And I heard the bit about your app. That must have been
yeah,
the first inroads. Did you make any money from that?
yeah. I made money to the point where I hired a whole team of programmers to start, and we did about 30 more apps in
But
healthcare.
but going back, you told me that you didn't know anything about coding and you did the coding yourself
Yeah.
initially.
Yeah, the first one I did on my own, I just felt obligated to do something. And I didn't have the resources either to say, "Oh, I'm just gonna throw away the X amount of money into something I don't know." And I was like, "Let me just give it my time," which I didn't really have much time, but I didn't care. I was gonna do it. Uh, Big picture, going back to the money part, when you serve others and you do it with your heart of serving, it doesn't become a job. And one of the hardest parts to your question was me to transition out of one-on-one medicine and transition more on the digital side. The reason I did it was twofold. One, I'm not getting any younger. Working 24 hours, 30 hours, nights, weekends, it takes a strain on your body. And I was like, that's gonna be too much. When I was younger, I was like, I got it, I can do this. Now I'm like, yeah, that's kind of painful. And then the other part of it, I thought, as I get older, what is the greatest good? And it's to continue to teach the future doctors, to teach patients, be inspiration, and then simultaneously, if I can help in the digital world, now if I can influence a company or two or be a consultant, now they're creating products that can affect millions, more than I could ever see in my lifetime. So I thought this will be a good way to continue going forward.
So really you're I mean, people might think you're too good to be true, Harvey, he can't be as good as he. But you know what? Having spoken to you a few times now, I just get a sense of someone who's quite genuine and you do care. I think you talked to me about we were talking about empathy, you know. I just think that's something which you can't really disguise. I think it's something that you feel. So my me personally, having been in this therapy space for long enough, perhaps my antennae are quite, sharp. Um, I suppose I can spot somebody who's not not in alignment with their own truth or my truth. Yeah, but every time I speak to you, because I get so kind of, for want of a word, giddy with excitement, like a child, it it sort of means to me that it's kind of genuine. So,
I
you
appreciate that. Thank
pass
you.
the test every single time I speak to you, Harvey, and it just gets better and better. And what I really enjoyed was watching you on a recent, as I said, a recent webinar that you gave with another doctor when you step into that doctor space, because I get the fun, Harvey, I
Yeah,
get the fun,
yeah.
Harvey. Yeah, I'm so happy. And then Harvey in the serious side talking all of this stuff which I couldn't understand. I thought, "Ooh, Harvey definitely knows his stuff." It's just that he doesn't bring that to me because I will not get it. I just won't get any of it. But it was interesting listening to the doctor because you were talking to a surgeon and he was talking about how he's been using it and some other aspects he was bringing in. I can't remember the full conversation. You might remind me of a snippet because my brain goes "Ugh," sometimes. I can only take so much information and my brain goes full, full,
Yeah.
full. So, you tell me, what was that doctor saying, that surgeon?
Yeah, it was fun, and you're right. I put on a different hat, and I use a different vocabulary when I have a doctor, and when I know that the audience is just mostly doctors in healthcare, and I speak to learn a certain way, I speak their language, so that when I give an example, I try to use a med school example. I try to use a physical example in healthcare, how they would do it. What talked about was fascinating. He's one of the four leaders in VR, AR, which is virtual reality, AR in medicine, and he's a surgeon. And what I think is amazing, he's one of the first doctors to use Google Glasses to use in surgery. But what he's doing now is really cool. He's basically using this technology, showing others how to do it, helping. He's a leader around the world about how to use VR in surgery, and
Can you remind us
the
of his name?
his doctor. Rafael Grossman with the double N. Really cool guy. He's on my LinkedIn. Just follow him, and he's got an amazing website, like really cool website. But the cool thing that I get kind of getting myself is that he's doing things that is going to help people. He's doing things that is going to help other surgeons, better patient outcomes on how to use VR, how to teach other doctors, the apprenticeship that you just talked to. What if you were actually you are on the other side of the world? What if we both put on these glasses and I can show you what I see and how I do things in my office, and then you on your side, oh, I see your office, I see how you're doing it, I see what how you're doing it. It would just take you to another level through my eyes. That's what he's doing with VR. My angle is I feel like I'm an AI healthcare doc. Why not put him and I together in a room and let's just talk? And so I thought, let me come up with ideas how to use AI plus VR and AR and take it to another level that doesn't exist. And that's what the conversation was. So it was actually very advanced, very geeky, but it was very healthcare related. But it was kind of a fun talk because I was like, oh man, I need to have this guy on my channel. Let's do it. So it
Well,
was
you
kind of
know what? I managed to keep up with it. I noticed an awful lot of healthcare professionals in the chat, and I was just keeping a very low profile. I won't say very much because I don't have an informed opinion on this. But it was an interesting conversation, and I think sometimes when it comes to learning anything new, even though you don't know it, it's down to the enthusiasm of the person that's conveying it. And you were very enthusiastic about it, and he was very enthusiastic, and so was the chat people in the chat that understood it. I thought, well, this must be a good place to be, you know. But the ethics did come up, and I think the
oh, yeah.
ethics will come up time and time again. So, Harvey, we've got 2 minutes left, okay? And I don't know if you've got any things that you're promoting in particular or anything that you'd like the audience to know about in terms of what you're doing next, or, normally it's about what have you got on offer, but, you're always on offer. I can tell that. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So in the background, I have about 10 books that I wrote this year. I highly encourage you to go on Amazon.com and just type in Harvey Castro. I got some geeky stuff like AI and crime and how to solve cold cases with AI. And I came up with this couple ideas, and Fox News interviewed me on it. It was kind of cool. Other fun stuff that I'm doing is literally I'm doing beta testing on a AI app that will text. You don't have to download anything. So I'm doing that. It's called Convo with GPT.com. And the skinny is we're looking for beta testers. And my goal is to release next month. But some of the cool things that we're doing is you can type, hey, I want a picture of a doctor wearing a stethoscope sitting on a horse, and you text it and it'll text you back a picture of what you just said. So instead of having to type it or go in Midjourney, it does it on a text. So that's something I'm working on that should be out soon, and other stuff like that. So, and obviously I'm
Can
promoting
I can
now
I
the
can I
GPT
can I just
podcast.
stop you and ask you there, why would you want to have a picture of a doctor on a horse? Is this for the children, the 5-year-olds who can? Say yes, please. I'm thinking, "Wow, what's he up to?"
I don't know. I just thought of something really random that
That was very random.
that
That
nobody
was
that
so
you would not
random, it
find
was
on Google.
untrue. Had me in stitches anyway. So, you know what, Harvey? We are coming to the end of, our time together, and people in the chat, they've really had a good time. They've enjoyed it, getting some good feedback, and people have been interacting, which is lovely. And I'm sure that people on the replay will get just as much from this particular talk as I have. And I have to have you back. I have to have you back so that you can explain more. My level of knowledge might have jumped. Who knows? Because it jumps in increments. You don't always notice that your level of intelligence is going up. And for me, it's all about emotional intelligence. As I said, guys, that's me. That's what I do. Harvey has been an amazing guest today, and all that talk around empathy, which is one of the pillars of emotional intelligence. My guest today has loads of it, bucket loads of it, but also has a big heart. So it's not about not just about the logic. It's also merging it with the heart, and I would also say with the gut. So we've got mind, body, and spirit. I should have just little rainbow things coming up now, shouldn't I? So Harvey, thank you so much. Had a great session today, and I'll have to have you back. And yes, people, audience members watching, if you love that, get in touch with Harvey, get in touch with me. Tell us what you thought, because really, we would hang out and just have a chat anyway.
Yeah.
This is just about us sharing some of the things that we talk to in a more public space. Okay, so I'm going to say my goodbyes. And Harvey, if you have one last thing to say to your guests, please go for it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What I wanna say real quick is live each day as if it's your last. Loved ones, family, people around you, make sure you take time with them. We never know the end. I'm as an ER doctor, I see a lot of horrible things, and I just wanna encourage everybody to make the most of today.
On that happy note, I'm going to have to say thank you. That's a beautiful way to end the show. So I'll catch up with everybody. Have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. And yeah, we will have a replay too. I think this could run for years, be quite honest, Harvey. Okay, so I shall speak to you all soon. And any questions, drop me a line. Drop Harvey a line. We're both on LinkedIn. You can always find us. And Harvey has so many books out there. You're bound to find him on Amazon. Okay, guys. So catch up with you all soon. Bye for now.